my name is Megan and today we're going to be talking about the second trimester of pregnancy in Japan. If you haven't seen the first trimester video, please go take a look. I'll include a link. In today's videos, we'll cover some topics such as superstitions, symptoms, shopping for mom and baby, doctor's appointments, and picking a hospital. So first up, congratulations on making it to your second trimester. This is typically considered the safety zone or the safe trimester, as during this time, this is when most of your pesky first trimester symptoms will start to disappear, and it's probably the most relaxing and comfortable trimester. The second trimester is from week 16 to 28, and typically all of your first trimester symptoms will be gone by week 20. Now, there are some people who will have symptoms all throughout their pregnancy, such as nausea or morning sickness. So just keep that in mind. But for most people, usually by week 20 is when everything disappears. You also might start noticing that your clothes aren't fitting anymore and that your belly is starting to hang out, and guess what? It's no longer because of gas. Your clothes aren't fitting because there's a baby growing in there, and it's going to be time to start shopping for some new clothes. You're also going to start having your doctor's appointments a lot less, down to once every 4 weeks instead of every 2 weeks, which is a lot nicer and a little bit easier on your wallet. And it'll be time to share the news with your employers, especially if you are looking to take maternity leave or childcare leave. And it'll also be time to participate in a Day of the Dog celebration. During your 5th month, about week 16 to 20, it is customary for women to participate in a Day of the Dog ceremony at a shrine or temple in your area. You can also venture off to one of the bigger shrines, which might have more language support, but first, let's dive into what is Day of the Dog. The Day of the Dog, or Inu no Hi, is considered to be a lucky day. In Japan, the days also carry zodiac animals. So in the rotation of signs such as the zodiac animals, such as the tiger, the dog, the snake, the boar. So the Day of the Dog is particularly lucky. It occurs 2 to 3 times in a month. You're bound to have a day where you can go between 16 to 20 weeks. So you'll go to the shrine, and there's a few options you can do. There is just your typical, you throw your coins in, you pray, and then you can go home. You don't have to do anything crazy, you don't have to spend any money, except for your 5 yen coin that you would offer to the gods. You can purchase some protective charms that you can get from the little shop that they have. You can also buy a maternity belt that the priest has blessed, and you can actually use it throughout your pregnancy to help relieve aches and pains. You can also go up to having a private meeting with the priest where he will bless you and your child. Typically, you'll receive a bag of items to help protect you and the baby and to prepare for a safe childbirth. So the reason the shrines provide a maternity belt is there's a big superstition about keeping your stomach and your feet and ankles warm during pregnancy. So I didn't receive a maternity belt from the shrine, but I went out and bought my own. I'll show it to you quick. So it's just something like this. It goes like this, it goes under your belly and just kind of gives you a little bit of support. I don't really like the one I have very much. I find it very, very uncomfortable to wear, especially for longer periods of time. They also have different styles. So mine goes over my belly. They have ones that just sit underneath your belly and just give you support underneath. There's also some that are just like basically tubes, and they're just more designed to keep your stomach warm while you're pregnant. But it's a very big superstition here about keeping something on your stomach and your ankles all the time. So this is the one that I was just wearing, and it's a softer kind. But again, they have different kinds. They have ones that are thicker at the bottom and at the back. They have ones that crisscross. They have ones that look like tubes to keep your belly warm. They have ones that are like an actual wrap. So it's just like a really long piece of fabric and you actually have to like wrap it around. So there's a few different options. A lot of baby stores will have a place where you can actually try on a sample before you buy, so you can actually see what you like. A lot of doctors and midwives push for women to wear maternity belts. Part of it is because there are a lot of women who do find comfort and pain relief from them, but there's also a lot of women who don't. Keep that in mind. You don't need a belly band, but if it works for you, that's great. If not, then don't feel like you're failing or that you need to have a maternity band. Speaking of staying warm, socks all year round, because barefoot while being pregnant is going to hurt you when you're a baby. According to several Japanese grandmothers who wanted to remind me of this when it was plus 40 degrees Celsius, plus humidity in the middle of summer, and I was sweating like crazy, and they told me that I needed to wear socks or I'd hurt my baby. You're not going to hurt your baby if you don't wear socks all year round. It's just a Japanese superstition thing. But be prepared for some comments from some grannies as you go shopping in your flip-flops and no socks. The second trimester is considered the most comfortable trimester, as this is when a lot of your symptoms start to subside, which is ideal to start planning your baby moon and to do any of your last-minute traveling. By 16 to 20 weeks, you should start feeling a little bit more energized, your appetite should be returning, and you should just start feeling a little bit more comfortable. Now, with your appetite returning, you may start to notice that your clothes aren't fitting as well as they used to. That's not just because of your appetite, it's also because your baby is going to start popping out of your pelvis and actually sitting in your stomach. So it's going to be time to start thinking about adding some new clothes to your closet. You might also be noticing some skin changes. A very common skin change is a dark line underneath your belly button. Some women get some dark spots on their face or their chest, shoulders, kind of like freckles. And some women will get purple, kind of like veins coming out of the backs of their legs and on their hips or in between their legs. All of that's normal. I do want to bring attention to one common skin symptom that isn't as well known in Japan as it is in the West. It's called tinea versicolor. And so tinea versicolor is basically a skin fungus. And now it's completely harmless. It will make you a little bit itchy, but it doesn't hurt. It's not contagious. Most people are just born with it and they don't actually know they have it until they go through a significant hormonal change, such as pregnancy or puberty, or they're in a very humid climate, which certain parts of Japan are very humid. I didn't know I had it until I got pregnant in Japan, so you can go your entire life without knowing you have it. If you do notice some spots, I recommend going to the dermatologist and they can give you some treatment. They won't be able to solve it while you're pregnant. They'll just give you some cream to help with the itch and to stop it from spreading. But as soon as you have baby, the doctor can give you some creams to completely get rid of it, and it's really easy to get rid of. All of your skin changes are due to hormones, and it's completely normal. You may find yourself needing to start lotioning more. After your shower or your bath, give yourself a full body lotion and you'll feel wonderful. And if you plan on breastfeeding, I definitely recommend starting to lotion and massage your nipples. Once baby is on there all the time, your nipples are going to get dry and cracked, and if you can start giving them some extra help now, some TLC now, then it's going to go a long way when you do start breastfeeding. Some other common symptoms during this time are nasal congestion, Braxton Hicks, dizziness, an increase in discharge, bleeding gums, and having very, very sensitive boobs. All of these changes are very, very normal and always due to hormones. So speaking of sensitive boobs, it's time to start thinking about shopping, and not just shopping for baby, but also shopping for mom. Your body is growing and changing, and you're going to need to have some clothes that can accommodate your growing body. Your breasts start filling out. You may start noticing that your regular day-to-day bras are no longer fitting properly, or they're very, very uncomfortable. So around this time is usually when I recommend at least buying your first round of maternity bras. Just keep in mind that your bra size can change really, really quickly, especially from the second trimester to the third trimester, and then again after a baby is born and you start breastfeeding. Stick with something cheap in the beginning until you kind of figure your sizing out before you decide to spend a little bit more money on it. I also recommend at this time buying some pregnancy underwear. There's a few different styles. There are some styles where it goes all the way over your belly to keep your belly warm. Again, going back to the Japanese superstition of warm bellies, happy babies. But they also are a lot more comfortable, and if you're wearing maternity pants as well, it kind of keeps the fabric from the maternity pants from chafing too much. And if you're wearing a pregnancy belt or anything, it just kind of gives that extra layer in between. I also found them really helpful in the summer because you sweat so much, and so it kind of just gives that extra protective layer between you and your shirt so that people can't see how sweaty you are on your back. They also do have some under the belly type of underwear, and really either style is a-okay during your pregnancy. So you can find both pregnancy underwear and breastfeeding bras online. You can also find them at baby stores like Akachanhonpo, Nishimatsuya, ToysRUS, BabiesRUS. You can also find them at Birthday, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other shops. This is just what's in my area and what I know. If you're needing bigger sizes, you might have to look at some bigger stores like H&M or online on Amazon. For maternity clothes, the maternity fashion in Japan is very, very standard. It's usually just really long shirts, baggy shirts, or dresses over some pregnancy jeans or leggings. There are some options where your pregnancy shirt will turn into a breastfeeding shirt as well, so they'll usually have some slits or openings where it's easier to discreetly breastfeed baby with. Again, you can find most pregnancy clothes at baby stores or some of the bigger stores. I actually just use a lot of my own clothes, loose fitting pants, and then just really, really baggy shirts while I'm pregnant, because that way I can use it after baby is born and I don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on pregnancy specific clothes. Aside from pregnancy clothes are a really good investment, especially as sleeping becomes more and more difficult as your belly gets bigger. And the nice thing is a lot of pregnancy pillows nowadays can actually transform into a breastfeeding pillow or even just like a feeding pillow. And so it's a lot easier for you to feed your baby. You may also want to start looking into wide and easy to slip on shoes, especially in Japan where you're constantly taking your shoes on and off as you enter buildings. And you're going to want to look at ones that have extra room to grow with, because usually around the end of your second trimester, third trimester, your feet are going to start swelling a lot more. You're not going to want tight shoes on your swollen feet. It may also be time to think about going for a spa day or a maternity massage. Give yourself some TLC and attention before baby gets here. And while you're feeling good, it may be time to start thinking about going baby shopping, at least for the big stuff. But where to start? I definitely recommend starting with the bigger items such as a baby bed, a stroller if you need one, car seat, or just any big items that you think you're going to need that may require some assembly. Take into account your personal situation. So if you're living in a really small apartment, do you really want a giant crib or do you want something a bit smaller? A lot of families here co-sleep with their kids, and so you can get a bedside crib until baby's older and then you can sleep with your baby. Some people also sleep on the floor, so then they just get a baby futon and the baby will sleep on the futon beside the parent's big futon, and that's also a really economic way for saving space and money. And same with things like if you live in Tokyo, do you need a very, very sturdy but small stroller, compact stroller, or are you okay with something that's a bit bigger, a bit more luxurious? Do you even need a stroller? And same with, do you have a car? Do you need a car seat? I do recommend getting like a car seat, like the typical ones with the handle that you can carry and that are easy to put in any car just with a seat belt. Just because if you're taking a taxi somewhere or you need to carry a baby around somewhere, you have something to do that with. So it's just some things to think about are if you're taking the trains daily, are you driving? Do you live in a tiny apartment? Do you live in a bigger house? Does baby have their own room, and how much space do they have? These kind of questions are going to be very important for you when you're deciding what to get baby. Smaller items that you can look at now are maybe a diaper bag for when you're out and about, a diaper box. So when you are in the living room or in the bedroom, you can just take this box and it usually would contain stuff like diapers, wipes, creams, snacks, water, things for mom as well. If you need headphones or anything, just you keep it in that box and it's really easy to carry it back and forth with you, depending what room you're in. You can also look at maybe some towels and blankets depending when baby is going to be born. You don't need a lot. I would say like maybe 2 or 3 blankets at the most. Something I do recommend looking at now is breast pumps if you are planning on breastfeeding. I myself have the Pigeon double electric breast pump because I was planning on going back to work after my daughter was born. However, situations changed, but it was really nice because you could use 1 or 2 at the same time depending what you were doing. You don't need a lot in the beginning, and I recommend not going overboard with clothes. You're going to receive a lot from your friends and family, as well as baby grows out of them really, really fast. You can also buy a lot of this stuff after baby is born, and you get a feel of how big they are. Same with bottles, you don't know what baby's gonna like, so if you do want to buy bottles, if you're planning bottle feeding, I recommend buying just like 1 or 2 different brands because you don't know what baby's gonna like. One day they might like, you know, bottle A, next day they only like bottle B. So don't worry about spending all your money on bottles. And then swingers and bouncers. A lot of babies have specific preferences. Some like to be swung, some like to be bounced, some like only front and back, some like side to side. So don't worry about buying anything until you know what your baby likes. You really don't need them in the beginning. The baby, as long as you're holding them, or if they're tucked in like a blanket nest kind of thing, they'll be fine. That's all they need. The last thing I'm going to recommend is buying a baby carrier. I actually have 3 baby carriers. I have a fabric wrap type baby carrier from Pikimama, which I will link in the description. It's probably my favorite carrier for the beginning because you can actually breastfeed while you are carrying baby, and it's just very easy to use. You can actually just keep it on if you're not wearing baby, and it's really like you don't notice it's there. Very, very comfortable, very, very nice, very, very well made. It's a local mom in Japan who makes them, so they're really, really great. My second baby carrier I have is a structured baby carrier. It's from Ergobaby. I really like the Ergobaby baby carriers as well because they offer a lot more support. It gives that extra support, especially for like longer trips if you're going out walking and stuff. My third baby carrier I just bought online at Rakuten. You can only use it from 3 months and up, but you can put them on the front, you can put them on the back. I like it because you actually can strap baby in, kind of like a little seat, and then you put them on your back, so it's a lot easier to put them on your back and do it by yourself. You don't need somebody's help to do it. And that's probably our favorite carrier, especially now that she's older, because she has a little bit more freedom when she's on my back and can kind of do what she wants. Stores I recommend for checking out for furniture at least are IKEA. IKEA is really good for not as expensive baby beds and chairs and stuff, but still good quality. Akachanhonpo is a lot more expensive, but the quality is also a lot higher. Nishimatsuya also has furniture and a lot of baby items, but I find that while it is cheaper, some of the products are also a lot cheaper quality. But I mean, like, everything has been approved for babies' use, and BabiesRUS and ToysRUS is just extremely overpriced, and there's not a lot of options for baby furniture, as it really is mostly just like a baby's toy store or a kid's toy store. I find that each of the stores has their own pros and cons. So BabiesRUS, ToysRUS is good for strollers and car seats and stuff like that. Akachanhonpo is good for getting kind of like everything in one place if you need it. Nishimatsuya is also good for having everything that you need, and it's also nice because it has a newborn specific area. Everything is laid out a lot better, and they will actually have signs that explains like common items that you will need for your newborn. And then Birthday is another baby store, and really Birthday is kind of useless except for baby clothes. They have lots of options, but it is a little bit pricey, I find, compared to Nishimatsuya. So next up, we're going to talk about your doctor visits in the second trimester. So during this time, your appointments are going to go from every 2 weeks to every 4 weeks, which is really nice. And it's really cool because you actually get to see significant changes and you actually get to watch your baby look less like a little alien monster and more like a human baby. You might even be able to find out the gender at this point. So typically your appointments are every 4 weeks, and at these appointments they're going to be checking the same things over and over again. They'll do an ultrasound to make sure that baby looks good, and they're going to check baby size and the amniotic fluids, so you'll know that baby is well taken care of. So during this time too, you're also going to start feeling baby move. Don't be alarmed if you don't feel baby move right away. My first daughter, I felt her move from weeks 13, 14 and all the way through the rest of my pregnancy, where my daughter now, I actually didn't feel her until way later. It just kind of depends on where your placenta is placed. If your placenta is in the front, you might not feel movements until weeks 20, 24. And if it's in the back, you might start feeling movements earlier. So during the second trimester, you may be able to find the gender. Usually between weeks 16 and 20 is when you'll be able to get a really clear shot of if it's a boy or a girl. So if the doctor's trying to tell you the gender before that, just keep in mind that it may change, and 16 weeks after is typically when it's okay to place your money on the gender. So some doctors won't automatically tell you the gender of your baby as well. In Japan, it's not as big of a deal like back in the West where we have all of these gender reveals. Also, some doctors won't tell you before 20 weeks, as that is when the cutoff is for late-term abortions, is 20 weeks, due to some old ways of thinking of preferred gender and abortions. So some old hospitals and older doctors might not be willing to tell you, but I haven't heard of that happening recently. So you should be okay. You just might have to ask the doctor beforehand that, or tell the doctor that you do want to know the gender, and they will let you know. At around 20 to 24 weeks is the ideal time to go for a dental checkup. Most prefectures and cities will provide a coupon. Keep in mind this coupon isn't for a cleaning, it's just for a checkup. So basically they're just checking if there's any major worries or concerns as your gums go through a lot of changes while you're pregnant. Next point we're going to talk about is your birth plan and picking hospitals. So depending if you are living in center of Tokyo or if you're living somewhere more rural, you may have already had to decide on a hospital. If you're somewhere more rural, you may have until the very end to pick a hospital. Or I definitely suggest before picking a hospital is to create a birth plan so that you can have an idea of what you would like your birth to look like, what are some things that you really would prefer. It may feel really early to start thinking about these things, but if you're having to pick a hospital already, then these are things that you really do need to consider before making your reservation and having to pay your reservation fee. So there are 3 main options when it comes to birthing facilities. Your first one is a large hospital. Usually it's going to have many different departments. There's also the big university hospitals, and usually these hospitals are a bit cheaper than the smaller clinics. Your second option is a smaller hospital. So usually it's a specialized hospital with maybe 2 or 3 departments. Usually it'll be OBGYN, pediatrics, and maybe internal medicine. Usually these hospitals are a bit more expensive, but you'll receive more in terms of care, and it's just a bit more of a homey feel. And then your last option, again, this kind of depends on where you live, is a birthing clinic, which is usually kind of where you would find your home birthing options or your water births and a lot more natural, holistic birthing methods. If you have a high-risk pregnancy, your only option really is to go to a bigger hospital. So if you are over the age of 40, if you're having multiples, if you're overweight or obese, you may have to go to one of these bigger hospitals because those are the places that will have the services and the facilities to help you and baby have a safe and successful birth. The downside for the bigger hospitals is there's not as much leeway with certain aspects. So if you're wanting things like a water birth or delayed cord clamping or other specifications, you're better to look at some of the smaller clinics. Smaller hospitals, they really vary on what services they offer. So do your research before you book at these hospitals. Feel free to call them, ask questions, go in, ask receptionist questions. They're there to help you, and they should be able to help you out and tell you if their hospital is a good fit for you or not. So they do offer more freedom. However, they're really only available in bigger cities like, again, Tokyo, Osaka, and the more rural you are, the harder they will be to find, or the further you will have to travel to go to them. Things you're going to have to consider when you are looking at hospitals is, number one, epidurals. If you are wanting an epidural or wanting the option of an epidural. Epidurals are only offered during business hours, so like 9 to 6 kind of time. And then some hospitals, they don't even offer epidurals at all. They only will have an anesthesiologist for emergency C-sections. The other thing you need to consider is if the hospital is English or foreigner friendly. Some hospitals I have visited require you bring your own translator, but at the current moment we are not allowed to bring any support people into the hospital with us, so that's going to severely limit the hospitals that you can visit. Some other things are if they allow water birth or allow you to move while you are in labor. Some hospitals require you to be strapped to the fetal monitoring machine throughout your whole labor, which is really, really annoying and inconvenient because you can't move with it. Some other things are positioning while you're in labor, if you have to give birth while on your back, or if you can squat or do something else, as well as labor partners, visiting hours, just all of these things kind of keep them in mind as you are looking at your hospitals. Another big thing is if you are allowed to eat and drink while you're in labor and what the rules are regarding that. My first hospital, I wasn't allowed to eat or drink at all. My second hospital, I am allowed to eat and drink, so every hospital is different. And then another thing to ask is what the hospital provides in terms of labor equipment, if you will. So things like music, if they allow candles, if they allow you to have an exercise ball, just these kinds of things that, you know, are very, very common back in the West, may not be common here. Also, the final detail of your reservation fee. So most hospitals here require you to not only book a reservation for your labor, but you also are required to pay a fee. So the bigger the city you live in, the higher the fee and the earlier you have to book your reservation. So where I live, typically you need to book around 28 to 32 weeks, and the fee can be from about $500 to $1,000. In bigger cities like Tokyo, where the reservation fee is like $2,000 and you have to book by 12 weeks or even earlier. There was somewhere you had to book at like 8 weeks, so you just found out you're pregnant and you have to pay $2,000 to give birth at this clinic. So just keep that in mind, that pregnancy is not cheap here. When you are looking at your hospitals, remember to ask very, very specific questions. I encourage writing them down so that you don't forget anything. And don't feel bad about taking the doctor's time or the nurse's times, because that's what they're there for. And you want to be confident and happy with the doctors and the teams that are going to be delivering you and your baby. So just ask all the questions you need to. That is all I have for today's video. I hope you found it helpful, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down below. Please follow me on Instagram at mommy.in.japan, and we'll see you later. Bye!